think of some weird dumb idea like, oh, fucking espresso shots. We turn basically anything you can think of into a fucking shot.
It's easy to use. It's easy to take. It's easy to use.
Yeah, but like fucking why? It's just like coffee. I need this in my body immediately. Let's make a shot.
Yeah, it's efficiency.
Yeah, because it's like a Jaeger bomb. You just want caffeine and to get drunk at the same time.
I mean,
like people butt chug shit.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
like I just want it. I want to be as drunk and hard. Yeah, I want to be as drunk as possible, as fast as possible.
I don't want my dick to work now.
Yeah. What was the original statement? Like, what do you mean by the utility of schizophrenia?
I was literally, the utility of basically, I just, like, I saw the post a long ass time ago, but I remember it was like this Reddit, like, oh, here, say this thing or whatever the fuck. But it's like, this one guy was talking about how, oh, what's your superpower? I think that was the like the prompt, and basically a bunch of people in the comments. But there's this one that stuck out to me. It's like this guy, he was aware that he had schizophrenia, and like he understood it's like basically what it was doing to him. And so on like command, he could conjure up like, say, like a fucking whiteboard or some shit and just start delusionally really using like fucking a whiteboard out of nowhere. It's like, you don't need the whiteboard, but you can have the ability to conjure up this thing that you need whenever you need it. And the thing is like, if you have the mental capability of understanding that you have schizophrenia, can you like harness and use its power? Like fucking gaslight your
Genkai.
Yeah, you can like gaslight yourself into having whatever the fuck you need whenever you need it.
Whatever ability you can have, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. That's why I was just thinking, like, that's just the utility of schizophrenia. You can do so much shit with it.
It's basically the usage of like a physical RAM system in your head, because it's like whatever is in your subconscious, you can probably just spit out into a visual representation or an auditory representation. Like when you're on a test, like Anthony was talking about last podcast, where he's like trying to brain blast like the formulas and like the process that you use the formulas with.
Yeah, but the thing, that dude could literally be like fucking Tony Stark working with like holograms and shit.
But in like the real world, he's just like moving his arms, talking to himself.
You know, there's actually something pretty interesting about schizophrenia is that I think Terrence McKenna talked about this a little bit, was the idea of shamanic schizophrenia.
Of halal.
Yeah, exactly.
Of halal.
And the whole idea is that schizophrenia, as it exists in like Western culture, you know, like in industrialized societies and stuff, it sort of, what's it called? It behaves a lot differently than schizophrenia in more tribal cultures and stuff like that. So like people who have schizophrenia who are in like those tribal cultures, a lot of the voices and things that they'll hear, they'll actually be like more supportive, and they'll be like more, you might be conspiratorial to a certain degree. You don't, you know, in our current like Western schizophrenia, a lot of the voices that people hear are like fucking kill yourself, or like you're being watched, or like there's all this shit going on.
Because there's no trust in our society.
Yeah,
I don't know. Deep down, I would assume.
Yeah, probably the more complicated it becomes, the more that you worry. So having schizophrenia in like a super developed society is probably a lot more overbearing than something where you're basically just like picking berries and hunting.
Yeah, maybe because you have like so much more access to information, and like that greater amount of access. Like if you don't go into it, there's like so much left that you don't know. Whereas like I feel like if you're in the tribe, it's like you're okay with not knowing.
Yeah, I just imagine, because it's like being Wraith from Apex. It's just the voices in your head, like, look behind you. Like, someone's watching you. It's like, oh,
thanks.
What? Thanks, me. Yeah.
A lot of the time too, it's probably they're probably considered like prophets a lot of the time, because I'm hearing the voice of God just because, you know, I might have actually heard the voice of God.
Yeah,
because I'm schizophrenic.
It's like, I know that's not me.
Speaking of me, welcome to the Null Thought Podcast. I'm me.
I'm me.
I'm me.
And we're me.
We're us. Together we make me.
Something that I wanted to bring up a while ago before it was like a big news back then, was like the whole idea of the dislike button on YouTube and other platforms.
I think it's really important for like at least self-reflection, but it can also fall into its own trap of just being overtly toxic.
Well, I think the people who make the videos, they could still see the thumbs down. Oh, but like it's just not public. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because we can see who like dislikes the video or whatnot.
Yeah, we know who you are.
But like
Me.
the central idea with it, specifically regarding YouTube, and this could be applied to a lot of other social media platforms and other platforms that have, you know, feedback like that. But the central idea is like with the dislike button, having a dislike and a like button, it's kind of difficult to gauge what your viewer base actually enjoys if you don't have that kind of feedback. And when the original decision was made by YouTube to remove the dislike button, I was pretty skeptical at first. I thought it was kind of a dumb decision. But in reality, I think it's probably a less toxic way to get feedback back. Because if you have a video that has 2 million views and only like 200 likes or something like that, I think it's pretty indicative that it was like a bad video. I think you can still gauge that without the dislike button. And then, like you guys said previously, you can also still see the dislike button from the viewer's
creator.
point.
Yeah, I don't generally dislike videos because it's like, if I didn't enjoy your video, I'm going to stop watching within the first minute, which like your analytics will tell you that like 47% of people who watch this video stopped within the first 15 seconds. That's like stats that you're told. I think I enjoy YouTube for the fact that they do give you a bunch of like channel analytics, which is like really good to know for your own personal feedback. But the idea of removing the dislike button entirely, or at least I feel like the change should only be made where like, I think they've done it really well where it's like the public shouldn't be able to see like ratio.
It stops like a ratio.
They have a global ban of ratio.
You're not allowed to ratio anybody, especially NFT profile picture.
Protected class.
I think it stops like a hive mind mentality too, because if a lot of people hate this video and you can see like the lightsaber, it's like a lot of people. If I saw a video that was heavily disliked and I also disliked it, I would probably be more inclined to dislike
on the bandwagon.
Yeah, rather than like if I enjoyed the video or if I did not enjoy the video, I usually don't even hit the like button.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm kind of a shit viewer.
Yeah, I use my likes playlist as like a literal song playlist. So I've immediately ruled out the possibility of me liking a video genuinely.
I don't use the like button because I hate it.
No, it's because I have a bunch of songs in my like playlist and they're from like years back, but still it's a good list of music that I have.
You have like a full 3-hour playlist of music, and then randomly there's just a fucking like an Indian dude teaching you how to code
in Black Ops 2 lobby.
That's not what I was thinking.
Because I'm just saying it's from years ago. It's probably some like Black Ops 2 music video.
You like to be racist back in the day.
I mean, like I enjoyed a lot of racist content back in the day. I still kind of do because I enjoy the edgy humor that it has because I understand it's within the context of being humorous.
It can also be done right.
Yeah,
like Dave Chappelle, like he's a very, very edgy and like disregarding like the transphobic shit that he said like more recently, but like his comedy historically has all been extremely funny, but extremely fucking edgy.
Yeah, it's like race oriented most of the time.
Yeah, a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't think I've grown past edgy humor, even though we've talked about it in the past. I was like, yeah, I'm post edge.
Well, like I'm post edge in the sense that like, and I don't think I ever really thought that this was funny, but like some people think that just saying the N-word is funny or I
do sometimes think it's funny. Like you hop into a lobby, all of a sudden you just the first thing that's
shock
spouted
value
from like a 10-year-old's mouth is just like the N-word, and you're like, what the fuck?
But that's funny because of the absurdity of it. It's like, holy shit, this 10-year-old just called me a fucking racial slur. Like, does he even know how to wipe his ass yet? Like, what the fuck?
Does he know what that word means?
Definitely not. Or they do, and they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I mean, that's the shock value of a lot of that stuff, which it's like edgy humor like that. It lies in a lot of people's hearts as something that is like genuinely hilarious. And when the idea of quote unquote cancel culture coming for a lot of these creators and comedians who use this kind of humor, it's like, it's a context. We talk about this with the Sam Hyde situation as well, where it's like you can be funny and edgy at the same time, but you have to know limits. You have to know when you're, actually marginalizing a group or you're using someone's, detriment to your own benefit.
And I think the taboo nature of like edge humor I'm not saying edgy anymore. I'm just gonna call edge.
Edge humor.
We're just edging all the time. But
When you edge,
but the fact that it is like, oh, it's like this, you got to keep it on the down low kind of thing. I believe that adds to like the value that it has, because it has to be used more tastefully. It's like calling someone a cunt. You can't just say the word cunt casually.
Unless you're Australian.
That's very true. But you can't just say that kind of thing as an insult to someone casually. Yeah, like I save the word cunt for when I really, really mean it.
When they deserve it.
When you truly deserve it, it needs to have the shock value to it.
It needs to have that punch. If you use it all the time, it loses its punch.
Yeah. Do you guys have words that you reserve for very special occasions?
Yeah, but I'm not going to bring them up on the podcast.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
Of
I'm
course.
kidding. But obviously, R slur, I still say sometimes. And
at least you're honest.
Yeah, no. And
a lot of people that I know that still use it are actively trying not to use it.
Yeah,
which is, I guess, a good thing, but also a bad thing that you use it as a safe quip.
Yeah. Okay. Safety quip.
Yeah, that one gets full points.
I don't know. It's like that's the last line of defense on slurs.
When I have no other options, I'm backed into a corner. It comes out. I get vicious.
It's my fight or flight. It's my natural response, you know?
There's also like public and private context, because I feel like we need to completely like divide the line between a public versus a private identity.
I mean, I don't really think in terms of your own privacy, yeah. But in terms of like what you say and do on your private occasions, I don't think there should be a difference, because what you it's like who are you? Like if we stop doing the podcast right now, we're not going to be spawning racial slurs or saying the R word or anything.
Well, speak
like
for
that.
yourself.
Yeah, no, we no, not us, not me.
No, I get what you're saying.
You guys
I think but I think like I think Alex is right in a sense that there are some jokes that you can say like in public and like be okay with that. But then there's other jokes that I would just say in private to like close friends, because like if you say them in public, it's like depending on who you're talking to or who's listening, you may not know. And so they could take that joke and run with it a way that you may not wanted them to.
Yeah.
Or like, like the whole like iDubbbz thing. Like I don't think iDubbbz is like a racist person at all, really. But he had that whole arc where he would be saying the N-word F slur, like as a joke or whatever. An edgy
for like
joke.
his viewer base.
Yeah, and some of his viewers though were legitimately racist and just using that as like a backup, like, oh, it's just a joke. I'm just saying a joke. But it's like, no, you're being racist, like you're using it to be racist because it's like your favorite YouTuber did it or whatever.
Well, do you think iDubbbz himself is using it? I think the idea of him using it in general is bad.
No, I do. Well, like I agree that doing that maybe in general might be bad, but I think in a private setting with the right people, it could be done well. Like if you have someone that you're comfortable with, like saying it, if you were like in a group of like all white people and you were like, you said that, it would be really weird. But like,
I don't know. I think just the usage of it in general is not good. Like those words are things that are purposely meant to demean other people. And I know there's a lot of like, harsh swear words that don't have any racial or derogatory meaning, like cunt or whatever, like Alex was talking about earlier.
That's sexist meaning, but yeah.
I mean, not is it? Does it?
A lot
like
of women perceive it as sexist. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's like the same thing with the word bitch.
Yeah.
That's coming to be a lot more of a like you. It's one of those words that's kind of like if you use it in specifically describing like a woman, it's kind of like.
Yeah.
I'm just quoting. What's the fucking show? Fucking Jesse Pinkman, fucking
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, holy shit! I literally blanked on that.
Jesse Pinkman takes on the world.
But like the thing between that public and the private division is like with you guys, I have literally years of context between all of us, right? So there is that level of you understand the context exactly what I'm trying to say because we have those years of context with each other. It's not like I'm all of a sudden racist. It's just like, well, there's these multiple years you've been with me that it's like, oh, this kind of thing is within my line of humor, and that establishes the context of, say, some joke that I would make. I'm not saying I am racist. I'm also not saying that I say a lot of racist jokes.
I mean, the thing is like, it's back to the public and private thing, because why would you say those things in a public setting but not or why would you say those things in a private setting, but not in a public setting?
Because they
so
don't have
here's
those years of context.
Here's an example.
But I don't think that matters in terms of the actual usage of the word.
Let me give
But in
you
humor,
an
it
example.
does.
All right. As a bisexual male with some gay friends, sometimes we'll call each other the F slur. Right.
Yeah.
In private, I would do that and I would call them the F slur and they would call me the F slur. And it's like, it's a meme. It's a joke between us. It's like, it's whatever. We're gay or whatever.
But you have the
like,
context of you being able to say that. Like,
Yeah.
if I said that to you, that would be like bad.
Yeah. But I think even if you were to say that, like, I think, well, one, you're my friend. I think it would be a little different if you were, depending on the context. You know, like there could be a joke that I could hear you say
podcast.
yeah, I'm just saying. I think there could be a joke where you say the F slur and it could be funny. It just all depends on the context.
It's got to be a good joke.
It has to be timed well, and it has to be like not something that's like legitimately offensive. It's like, you know, like, oh, what do you like to eat steak? You fucking F slur. You know, it's like, I don't know, just something silly, something stupid. But like I think that if you were like in public and you were calling your friends the F slur and shit, or if you had a public platform and you were calling your friends the F slur or whatever, then it kind of gives other people, like, it gives them leeway to either call you homophobic or like use those jokes themselves in contexts where it's not good.
But
you know
also with cancel culture, that gives you the ability to ratio them in return.
True.
It's like, bro, I'm gay, ratio. And then you're done. Literally argument over.
The thing is too, like, I don't think it matters what kind of audience you're doing that with, because you can have context. Like if we had the same 30 viewers for 5 years and we were making the same kind of jokes.
30, more like 5. Dude.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of like, I don't know, longevity or whatever.
Fair enough.
But it's just like if we had the same, small viewer base and we were using the same kind of jokes, at what point is that not like private or public then? Because if you were saying that to me, and maybe we didn't know each other as well as we have, but we have just recently become friends, and you were using those words with me, I would get the same idea that you think like doing it publicly someone would get. So if you were like saying the F slur like abundantly, I would be able to say, oh, well, he's okay using it, so I could probably use it in other settings. And I know that's kind of like a bird brain take, because I obviously understand there's a lot of context to it, especially you being, bisexual. It's like,
because like the thing is like the reason why I would just disagree is because even though we might have like a small insular community, it's still like a public platform that exists. You know,
I mean, anyone
can watch those videos. We can say whatever we want, but it's just like, if you are comfortable with saying things that probably shouldn't be said on a public platform publicly, like there's just a lot of things that people could take with it. Like, for example, even just something like with vaccines or something, if you said something that was kind of ignorant, or like, what's it called?
we've made jokes before, like acting like conspiracy QAnon people. And I obviously understand that could be misconstrued in a lot of ways, because they're like, oh yeah, they advocate for that kind of stuff, even though it's not true.
It's our responsibility at that point as quote unquote comedians to establish the proper context for that joke to go by like under the radar, I guess, where, it doesn't spur any red flags. It's the whole point of the joke is to get along the point that you aren't racist while also making a racist joke, or
because
something like
with
that.
like vaccine stuff, we point out how stupid that is.
Yes.
We're never like, this is a legitimate point of view. Yeah, we've kind of established, like, with past things that we've said, like, obviously, well, I'd hope obviously we're not racist or sexist or whatever, but like,
we're also
maybe
just in an echo chamber.
There's clips that you can make where it looks like we are.
Yeah, like someone could do an out of context compilation of us and just like
someone could do that.
Fucking, we just
unless
be
we do
ruined.
it first, and we just we take the reins in.
Mm-hmm.
We are racist. We're coming out as racist right now.
Here are all of our out of context clips of us being racist. Can we get a racist compilation on YouTube?
I don't think we've said a lot of things that can be misconstrued as racist. I think we've said way more things that can be misconstrued as QAnon bullshit. I mean, that's the thing, though, is like, how far are we willing to go with a lot of these jokes before people start to think that we actually are perpetrating these ideals? Because we perpetrate them as jokes because we laugh about it, or we'll do a funny voice on top of it.
I feel like there's a point when you like triple, quadruple, pentuple down on a joke where it ends up being actual hardcore irony. And Like,
that's the thing.
the
Because
entire-
we
like,
have
the
a lot
thing-
of ironic humor. So it's like, what's the difference between us saying these kinds of jokes between us, which is obviously we understand the context.
Take Super Mega, for example, where they themselves have been doing essentially just the bit of being like these right-wing Republicans
Yeah, they do, but
for like years.
But they do the same thing where they do like a silly voice on top of it.
Here's the thing, is that they've been doing it for so long that they no longer need to do that funny voice because they've established within their own narrative that this is a joke.
Mm-hmm.
So
But don't you think that new viewers could come in?
they totally can. It can be totally misconstrued. But then their comment section is also like immaculate.
Really?
Where it is, they've like internalized this whole like inside joke in a form that basically anyone can kind of understand. And it's really interesting to see how the community has like made their way in on the joke as well. And it's fucking beautiful. I love that shit.
I think another point to make about these kinds of comedians is the fact that like a lot of the time there's a disconnect between what they actually believe and these jokes that they're making. I mean, obviously we do it all the time too, or like these kinds of jokes that we talk about obviously don't reflect our actual worldview.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something like, how far are you, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like how far are you willing to go with these kinds of jokes before it becomes like you're perpetrating your worldview?
The whole way.
I think like it's really tough. It's what's it called? It's like irony poisoning. It's like what happened to Gamers Rise Up and those other like meme super ironic subreddits, is that they went so far into like an ironic sense that
They
like
dug their own
actual,
grave.
well, I don't even think it's that. It's just that actual like radical, alt-right type people, they just
starts
saw
attracting
it.
the wrong crowd.
They saw it as like an opportunity. Well, like, hey, I could actually just use all this irony posting to actually just post like my legitimate beliefs, because at this point, who the fuck knows, right? Because like at first Gamers Rise Up was literally just a meme subreddit that, like they would make like ironically sexist shit with fucking Joker top text, bottom text.
And then it became a real thing.
Yeah, and then they
like
started
people
posting
who
like
liked that stuff.
like 1350 memes and shit like that. And it's like, holy fuck, what is wrong with you people?
Yeah, at that point, it's like you're using the talking points of like extremists to perpetrate your own ideology. So it's like, how does that not make you an extremist in that point?
I feel like once you start justifying your ideology with memes is a point when you've gone too far.
Well, it's like if you say something extremely racist and then go, oh, it's a joke.
It's a meme.
It's like, how are you able to, convince somebody that it's a joke without just seeming like an idiot?
With that, if that's truly your worldviews and you have to revert back to it's a joke, it completely like delegitimizes any argument that you have in the statement in the first place, because clearly you don't have any confidence in what you're saying.
Yeah.
You don't have any saying power with what you're trying to say, because you're like, oh, it's a joke. Instantly you're invalidated of your opinion because you don't believe what you're saying.
I don't even think it's that. I think people say it's a joke because they don't want to face the
consequences
of what they actually said,
because
because
they don't want
it's
to
like,
deal with an actual discussion.
Yeah, because it's easy to just say some really fucked up shit and be like, it was just a joke, bro. You're taking it too seriously. Just
That's what
calm
Tim
down.
Pool did. We talked about that a while ago about its Holocaust thing.
Dude, that's what like fucking a ton of people do. And like it doesn't even need to be like sexist or something. It could be something that's just like really personal to you, and they'll say it and it'll be like legitimately hurtful, but they'll just like, it's a joke. It's a joke. I don't want to talk, like it's just a joke. But it's like, shut the fuck up, and about the thing that you said about like, when does it become too much? It's just like, it's really hard to tell, because it's like,
I don't be this kind of dichotomy.
I don't think you can know until you have gone too far. You know what I mean?
There is no really like, there is no gray area. It's just like fine line. And then once you've crossed, you're in it. And you're just like, fuck.
Well, no, I think it is all very gray.
Yeah, all of it's gray,
very, very gray.
It's
And
a
then there's
huge
like
gray zone.
the blackest line ever that you just cross.
Yeah.
You look back and it's, oh, fuck.
I'm in the abyss now. I'm in the racism abyss.
I'm in the racism void. I think this should encourage people who make a lot of these kinds of jokes to form their own kinds of like legitimate and well-founded opinions on the world, because if you don't have these views and you're literally just memeing your way through life, you don't have an actual, idea that you're trying to perpetrate.
Yeah, you don't have any principles.
Be well informed about the shit you believe. That just makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I believe in a lot of things. I'm a very political person.
What?
So it's like, I don't want to. What do you mean?
To be fair, you said I believe on a lot of things.
Well, yeah, because it's my worldview.
Well, no, but
I'm not going to say it's
just
facto.
grammar. It's just grammar. You would say I believe in a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I don't want to construe myself as someone who thinks that everything I'm saying is a factual.
Okay.
I believe that there's a lot of things that I could say to support my worldview. But what I'm saying is, if you don't have this kind of worldview, you don't have an actual way or morality that's guiding you in a certain direction.
You're wrong.
Making these jokes kind of it could be misconstrued as racist pretty much instantly, because if you don't have anything to say, oh, well, I actually do care about these kinds of people, or I don't want to make jokes that go too far or anything like that, then it kind of just means nothing. Mm-hmm. Which is something that I think everyone who makes those kind of jokes should, pay attention to, not only themselves, but everything that is going on. Because if something happened like, in an extreme case, like a genocide of a certain kind of person, and you still make jokes about, saying certain words or, the detriment of those people, it's like, that's just in bad taste.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to know your audience. There are certain jokes that I wouldn't tell around certain people because I know like how they might read it and how they might digest it, so I think it's just like it is all about knowing, what are your core principles? What do you want to believe? Like, do you want to make people feel like shit from your jokes, or do you want to make people laugh? You know what I mean? There's
just like certain filters that are put into place where I feel like that the filters are exactly why we need to have the to loop back to the original thing where it's like, you need to have that public space and the private space separate, because those filters basically determine what you can say.
I mean, I understand that point, but my main argument was, at what point does it become too much of like I have to keep this hidden from other people kind of thing? Because it's like, how far are you willing to go with that?
I don't think it's really like keeping it hidden. It's just like being aware of who's listening. And like, like if let's just say we had 1 million subscribers or something, or like we were getting hundreds of thousands of views on every video or whatever, that might make you think twice about saying a particular joke or like doing a particular meme, because it's just like, there are so many people listening. It's like, holy shit. What are they going to think if I say this? What are they going to believe based on these words that I'm saying? Do they understand that I'm joking? Do they understand that I'm being ironic? I think that's like kind of an important thing to consider. That's where I would think about like the public versus private. That's the only.
Look at Hassan. Hassan's like constantly under a microscope of everything that he says because of like the community that he's created. It's just, when you start amassing a bunch of people who are watching you, you're no longer working in that a small, tight knit, like, oh, I'm with my friends kind of thing. It's now you're working under the actual guise of like a public figure. Mm-hmm. You are essentially,
well, it's not under the guise. You are a public figure. Yeah.
But you are essentially a public figure, and you have to realize that the things that you say will affect even a small amount of people potentially negatively. Mm-hmm. So like it might be fine for 99% of your community, but that 1% who's going to like take it too far and understand that, not understand that this is a joke, you have to worry about that. But also, do you assume the responsibility of those people who can't pick up on the context of those actions?
Yeah, that's a good point, because the whole like the thing with him, or his mods rather, calling somebody a cracker, it's like, that may be funny in the community, but from under a larger scope, if you're looking at it in a greater worldview, I don't think you should be able to just say that kind of stuff, because it is demeaning to a certain race and everything. Mm-hmm. And it's, I have my own opinions on the word cracker. I don't think it's honestly that bad, but I think that's a certain word that I think is getting a lot of attention right now because of its kind of, it could be interpreted as this way or in this way.
Yeah.
And he has his own arguments for saying that it doesn't really mean anything. It's basically the same thing as calling somebody a Yankee or a honky.
We've been demonetized already.
Yeah, we've been demonetized forever.
I think, I don't know, because like with Hassan, there's like when you get to a certain point, it's just like you said, things that you say are going to leave your community and they're going to echo throughout like a lot of different spaces. Like there was a while ago where Hassan said something like, America deserved 9/11. Like he said that verbatim, I'm pretty sure. And honestly, it's a defensible quote because you can say things like, well, we funded the Mujahideen who like became the fucking who some of those people became the Taliban, and
there's an argument
also,
to say that it is a consequence of the actions that we did.
Yeah, and it's a really edgy way to say it, you know. And so like he literally got shown on like Fox News and shit like that. Like
he was big news for that.
Yeah. Because he's like one of the biggest American streamers or whatever, and he's like, America deserved 9/11. Yeah, I'm pretty sure after that he became like one of the most viewed political Twitch streamers.
No bad publicity. You know what they say.
I mean, the thing is with comedy in general, it's always if it's not a good joke makes fun of something that is realistic. And what he was talking about there is realistic. Like we did do a lot of the shit that basically led to 9/11.
Well, I don't think that was a joke.
Yeah, it wasn't a joke.
Because he was like, I remember the clip. I'm pretty sure I was watching the stream. He was literally like, you know what? I'm going to fucking say it. America deserved 9/11. And it was honestly kind of hilarious. But like, because he was watching something with what's his name? It's a senator who has like an eye patch because he lost it.
Super villain.
Well, he lost it in a gunfight or something like that. I don't even know. This guy has
power.
Something like that.
Holy shit!
And Hassan made a joke. It was an actual joke where he was like something about the brave Mujahideen fighters of Afghanistan fucking his eye hole or something like that. And it's like, holy shit.
I don't know if that one lands well, but I mean,
I didn't do it justice because he worded it better. And I do think like to an extent you can make certain jokes about like
that's extreme.
About people like because
losing eyes.
I think no, it's not even that. Because I think making jokes about that is kind of fucked up. But like
Hassan's ableist. It's
a little bit.
in that case, yeah. Because imagine if someone was like, "Oh, you don't have legs? I'm gonna fuck the stump or some shit like that." It's like it's just grossly.
I laughed at that like genuinely.
There's a problem with like making those types of jokes because you capture people who weren't meant to be part of it. You know what I mean?
Because people will make fun of, or people will find it funny, not for the like the extreme or shock value. They'll be like, yeah, that's fucking funny because fuck disabled people. It's like, that's not correct. That's not the right take to come by. I think there's a dichotomy with that, with literally any kind of humor. And I think just because cancel culture exists now, which I think is just a byproduct of social media and how interconnected a lot of people are, it's like people who aren't necessarily in a lot of communities see the publicity of these kinds of extreme jokes, and they go, "Well, that isn't funny. That doesn't make sense," because they don't have a lot of the context to. It's like reading a headline of Hassan saying that America deserved 9/11. They don't know the context behind what maybe why he said it, even the historical context of America.
It's like a 9-second clip out of like a
Twitch clips don't do it any justice either, because you literally can just go in, take those 9 seconds of like them saying something, and then you cut out the entirety of the lead up. Yeah, you cut out the entirety of the lead up and the follow through, and you just have this out of context saying of just like, Hassan saying, America deserved 9/11. I mean, it probably was,
or fucking an eye hole.
Yeah, fucking an eye hole, just like stuff like that. But you can just go in and like remove the context. It's just, you provide people the ability to remove context, and that's a bad move.
Yeah, it's a powerful move, because you can basically destroy someone's platform by a good chunk just by taking them out of context. And that's where, cancel culture, I think in general, is a good thing, because it keeps people in check about what they can say before they get too ironic or too racy. But it's also a double-edged sword, because you have a lot of people who generally are pretty innocent, and something could be taken out of context.
There's also just like a lot of fucking crazy people on social media that like have hate boners for a fuck ton of people, and we'll just like purposefully try and clip them out of context and make them look like shit.
Do you remember the Nature Man on Twitter who would always post? It was a while ago. He was some guy who posted a lot of. It was the first video they posted that he got super popular off of was him with a deer, and he was like, it was a certain deer or pack of deer that he was always with.
Yeah, I think, and he like, didn't he feed them and shit?
Yeah,
and he would like talk to them.
It was weird because he was literally like a Disney princess. Where all these animals were just attracted to him. It was honestly a skill, but something came out about him like maybe a year and a half after he was famous for a little bit, where he had like some, he was saying something about Nazis or like Nazi propaganda. He was 14 at the time. it seemed like a joke. And I don't think he, I don't think he perpetrated the same kind of beliefs that he did after he became famous and everything.
Yeah.
But it was something that like cancel culture came after him. Honestly, probably unwittingly. It was probably something that he didn't really deserve because I mean, he was 23 at the time, 22. And it was,
dude, I've said some really fucked up shit in my teen years.
Yeah, I saved a lot of it.
I think
I'm just waiting for the right moment.
I think it's one of those things where, it's just your internet presence coming back to bite you, which is something I wanted to talk about as well, like internet privacy in general. Because we've been very open on our platform here, like the podcast. We've talked about our sexuality. We've talked about our own history. And it's just like,
I feel like the things that we've shared are things that are just kind of acceptable in the first place to share.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're personal and not to a degree that's like oversharing or anything like that.
By the way, my mom's maiden name is
my social security. But yeah, it's that kind of internet identity where you don't know how much is actually going to come back to bite you in the ass later on.
Without a doubt.
And I don't think we've said anything here that's going to come back to bite us.
Who knows? Like when like an Xbox Live message you sent like fucking 20 years ago is going to come back. It's like, this is what he said. This is his gamer tag. I've tracked his IP all the way. Here's where he lives. It's like, bro, what the fuck do I do then?
Gears of War 3 was a stressful time in my life. Okay.
Exactly.
He was just lagging everywhere.
He fucking deserved it.
I couldn't fucking kill him. It's that kind of shit. Where
he called my mom a bitch.
And he said he fucked her. He said that's my dad. But like, so, one thing I wanted to bring up. This kind of coincides with the internet privacy thing, but it was also building off of like what you said earlier about cancel culture being a symptom of social media or something. I personally think that cancel culture has existed like all throughout human history.
I agree.
It's easier to do now through the social media.
I don't even know about that. It's just
how is it not easier to do now?
Because I think it's what I think is different about it is that it's just I think the stakes are a little lower because back in the day, I think cancel culture, quote unquote, would have been something like the fucking Salem witch trials or like lynching or something like that. And that you might be saying like, oh, well, that's like, that's a weird comparison to make, but it's like, it's kind of the same toxic hatred of others.
The bar for canceling people has lowered essentially. What you're saying. Okay.
Well, I don't think it's that extreme though. I think comparing it to something that
I don't think it's extreme. That's what I'm saying. Like it's not as extreme as it is or as it was back then. That's what I'm saying.
But that's just mob culture in general. I don't think holding people accountable is the same thing as something like lynching.
What do you mean by holding someone accountable? Because literally that would be the same justification that the lynch mobs would use to fucking hang Emmett Till. Well, we were just holding him accountable because he fucking whistled or whatever they accused him of to that girl.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, where do you define it? Because it's all in your own personal worldview. But in general, I think perpetrating those kinds of, I think we're using it in the opposite context where we're using it more of a safety reason rather than we need to kill this person reason or deplatform. We're not saying that.
Well, they would have said it was for safety too. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like these justifications, because cancel culture, it targets the wrong people a lot of the time. Like it genuinely does. I do think that there is some legitimacy, like holding someone accountable to what they say. And like, if you don't want to hear them or you want to publish things about them that are bad, I think it's probably pretty justified. And I think that it can be useful and good in a lot of circumstances. But there are those elements where it's like, there are just people who have like this vitriolic hatred for someone and they're just like fucking like clip chimping them or just like taking everything out of context or like compiling like these fucking crazy Google Docs that are like 35 pages long of like every possible bad thing they've done in their entire history. It's like that same kind of culture that existed with like the Salem witch trials, like makes, watching out for those people.
I think a big difference though is like a large portion of the people who were doing Salem witch trials or lynch mobs were those kind of hyper-focused psychotic individuals were a majority of it, while cancel culture today is like a minority in that case. Like the idea of the people.
What do you mean by a minority?
Well, the people that are psychotic compiling these Google Docs and like trying to get people deplatformed are most people who, I mean, the general public of quote unquote cancel culture aren't these modern lynch mobs. They're just people who don't like this person having a platform. Like Joe Rogan with the whole vaccine misinformation that he's putting out now, he's probably going to start mentioning about how cancel culture is coming for him because of his opinions. And it's like, I consider myself a part of the cancel culture in that sense, because I don't want him to have a platform where he's spreading this kind of information. But I'm not the people compiling Google Docs and with the psychotic hyper-focused nature on him.
To be clear, I don't think like the hatred against Joe Rogan is like something that or like not necessarily hatred, but like the dislike of Joe Rogan and his platform. I don't think you have to be a psychotic individual to have that opinion. But what I'm saying is that because I don't know necessarily even if people in the Salem witch trials, if they were all like those psychotic hyper focused on witch behavior shit.
I mean, we weren't alive in the 17th.
Well, no, I wasn't. But what I'm thinking is that there probably were a minority of fucking psychos who people just kind of latched onto because it's easy. If they put enough info out there that might seem damning, they're like, okay, I can hop on this. This seems kind of bad. I think that exists with the same way that cancel culture exists today.
Yeah,
where like there's going to be those weird psychos who say some crazy shit. And then there's going to be a fuck ton of people who are normal who might just hear it kind of down the grapevine and just jump on it.
Yeah.
And like, I think those types of things are bad, but I think like there is an area of what some people would call cancel culture that is good in that we are holding people accountable. And like,
it's probably the majority of cancel culture.
There's also
maybe, I don't know if that's true though. Like
in most cases, it's always going to be the vocal minority that will end up being the spokesperson for the group as well. So it's just you going under that, not the guys, but like that route of information, and just knowing that the idea of what we are talking about as cancel culture is we aren't talking about the extremist minority. We should be talking about the majority of cancel culture, which in their own defense are probably most oftentimes correct. It's just the relevancy of the information that they collect like matters, right?
Well, the reason why I just kind of don't think it's like, I think like a lot of the time it ends up being bad is because a lot of corporations are under the eye of the market, like they'll make a lot of decisions,
removing the dislike button
or not like that, but like they'll make decisions based on like social media backlash and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like if there was like a,
it gives people the ability to cover up too when other people get exposed.
Yeah, well, like one example that I could think of is there was this concert that that these people were trying to put on. That
Astroworld.
No, Travis Scott deserves to be canceled for that one.
He kind of does.
But like, I forget what the concert was called, but it was some weird like it was a show that was supposed to be held in a tattoo shop, and it was just it was like these local fucking. Like these weird rappers that they were like meme rappers on Twitter, and they kind of got like a small following in this one community. And a lot of people, they like didn't like them for some reason. And I don't remember the complete reasons why, but I remember them not being that serious at all. Yeah. But like literally, once they heard about this show being started, they would there was a ton of people on Twitter that were like calling up all the venues and like the people like the job of the person who was organizing the event, and like got them fired and like got their life destroyed. Jesus. And it's like,
well, for what reason?
Because they were holding a concert with people they didn't like. That was the reason. Like
I don't see, the thing is I would technically consider that cancel culture, but that's the thing though, is like I think there is a double-edged sword to cancel culture in general nowadays, because I think there's a lot of checks and balances that we have now with how widespread the internet is. People are very opinionated. So if something was unnecessarily canceled, like that idea, you and I clearly understand that is ridiculous.
Cancel culture just needs to go through a development cycle. It's relatively new. It still needs to work out all the kinks in its ideology.
Well, that was Anthony's point, that it wasn't new.
I don't think it is new. I think it's just that like I think it's probably easier to do, like you said, because it's just there's a larger platform. There's more opportunities.
I think eventually there will be a good one that isn't a double-edged sword.
Streamlined, optimized cancel
a very
culture.
efficient. It's the objective morality sense again, because it's like eventually there will be a time where we understand what is right and what is wrong, rather than a bunch of
it will be
opinionated-
easier to cancel these individuals
Yeah,
because
if
they
you say
truly deserve
something-
it rather than it just needs to evolve. It needs to catch up with the times that we're in. I feel
Do you guys think that we're always evolving towards something better?
not towards something better, but we are all always evolving.
Yeah, we're always evolving, but towards something better is what is what matters.
I mean, there's
think
plenty of times when it just like look at biology of like animals and stuff, and like
That in that case, if we're talking about purely biological, I'm going to say no.
Hold on,
I'm not talking about biology.
Stop. Let me finish the fucking statement. Jesus.
Cut him off again.
Go ahead.
Cut him off again.
End of podcast. Goodbye.
Okay, but like if we look at even like the biology of animals, there are plenty of times where just like they have this evolution, this mutation, and it survives, and it's fucking awful. Like it kills them.
Useless.
It kills them half the time. And
Look what we do to dogs.
yeah, basically. But like
Those dumbass dogs.
there are even times when essentially the universe fucks up in evolution. There's by no
it's not the
means are we
universe.
ever going to evolve towards something perfect.
Yeah.
We're always going to be changing, and we can strive to be more perfect. But I don't. It's like a fucking. There's constantly there's as many ups as there are downs with evolution.
Yeah, I think it's in terms of like society, we're always trying to aim towards a greater goal, and we try to keep the pros and cons of all these different decisions and everything in check. We say, well, this is a good system, let's keep doing it. This is a bad system, let's try to find a solution for it. And in general, maybe something that we do is a bad decision, maybe something that we do is a good decision, but we can see the effects of it later on down the line. So something like, I don't know, capitalism nowadays, we clearly see the negative the effects of it today in our society. But back in the 50s, I love capitalism. Back in the 50s,
Bring child labor back.
But see, that's my point though, is like back in the Industrial Revolution, that was like, it was the best thing ever because no one had any idea of anything better. And, even in the 50s, the 1950s, it was like still a great thing because of how prosperous our economy was.
I still think
Don't say it.
that child employment is a good idea. But obviously forced labor is bad, but the idea of being able to get yourself into a work ethic at like such a young age is actually pretty neat.
Well,
I mean, when I was 16,
I don't think the kids were forced into labor per se. It's just that there were no
there's
educational
literally zero
opportunities
options for them.
Yeah, there was like if they didn't work, their kids or their parents would starve. Like
but I think like opportunities are important. So just to say on the child labor ideas is just like if say like a child could get like a job just like bussing tables or some shit at like 14, it makes sense. It shouldn't be illegal to basically make this kid work under the table, and if anything goes wrong, it's completely like illegal.
Under the table is illegal, but
I'm saying that, but they have to work under the table
because it's illegal. Yeah.
So that in that kind of sense, I would consider that child labor, but someone working at like an actual employment, like you said, the term employment, I think is important here because if you're paying somebody to do a job, you can't underpay them just because they're younger, I don't think that's necessarily right because they're putting themselves out there in the corporate world or like the business world to do a job early. You can easily just choose not to. Yeah. I mean, I started working when I was 16 and, you're still a kid back then. And I was making minimum wage, which I guess is fine. But the thing is like, in today's society, we think that people shouldn't be earning that kind of wage. And it's like, why not? That's the whole point of getting a job early was meant to like the idea of teenage labor is meant to be like you're starting early, which is a good thing for you because then you can have more money. Yeah. So when you're 18 or when you decide to move out or you decide to go to college, you have this extra money. But now we've taken it for granted, or I guess not taking it for granted. Corporations and big business, capitalism in general has taken that for
there just hasn't been wage growth. So because of
it's basically it's essentially
policy
like child labor now anyways, because there's really no difference. We were paying them shit back then, we're paying them like shit now, and that's extended to even adults because there's a whole mindset of people being like if you work
or the paycheck to paycheck grind set,
people think that that's perfectly okay, and it's like that's the point of minimum wage. by the person who fucking created it was to say that, everyone has the ability to, grow their own wealth, will live off this wage. But now since it has grown so, it's basically been stagnated since it was created. It's like, it's basically lost all of its meaning. It doesn't actually mean anything now.
Yeah, there's been an evolution in the like the mindset of that, where that instead of having minimum wage, you live comfortably with your essentials. It's now you are living by the bare essentials.
Yeah, you're living by the skin of your teeth, essentially.
And it's kind of ridiculous how we've I don't know, we have dehumanized, corporation and, big money.
We've dehumanized the act of labor. We don't think it's necessary anymore until, it's a huge conservative talking point where like the idea of minimum wage is not for people trying to grow wealth. It's for teenagers trying to, but like a majority of the workers in America are minimum wage workers. That's where a majority of the jobs are.
Yeah.
So,
it's not like teenagers are included by, a couple of years, but it's not like that we don't wish to work. It's that we wish to work in more meaningful ways than what's provided to us. And so that's why we pursue through education. That's why we try to climb the fucking job ladder. We want to do more meaningful work to provide ourselves with more fulfillment, but also by extension, the world around us will prosper through us as well because we provide this service, this work.
Yeah.
And so it's fucking ridiculous, the fact that we have to basically fucking grind ourselves into like these jaded beings just
who just work all the time.
Who just work all the time in order to, first of all, live. It removes us from the ability. It removes the empathy from us. Essentially, we are then forced to work in more selfish means because we are trying to live, whereas we don't have the ability to give a fuck about anyone else.
Yeah, if a job is paying you handsomely to do a job, you're gonna want to do that job to its fullest extent.
Yeah,
you can get more out of it, or you might just want to keep the job. But nowadays, it's so easy to get a minimum wage job. All you have to do is, there's certain things like you have to have a lot of like government documents, which is always pretty tough to get, which is why homeless people have such a tough time actually finding a job. The concept of people being like, why are you homeless? Just get a job. It's so like, I've heard
just
so many
get
people.
A house.
Yeah. It's so silly that people say shit like that because they don't understand.
Find a bridge.
Those are nice and warm in the winter.
I should probably redact the statement that it's easy to get a minimum wage job, but it's easier to get a minimum wage job than something that can actually pay you a livable wage.
Yeah.
Because back to the original point, like the point of minimum wage is to be able to, propel you. It's supposed to be accessible, but it's also supposed to be, it's supposed to allow you to basically live in a society. But now we have to have 2 or 3 jobs just to make it by.
Yeah, not to like completely change the topic, but have you guys like narrowed down your careers of like what you want to do within your like career choice, essentially?
The problem with my degree particularly is that I have a wide range of, as a computer engineering major, it's like I get a lot of software, so I know a lot of programming languages. I have a lot of like IT and networking experience, so I can be like someone who works at like a data center or something that is more interconnected, like the network engineer. But then I also have a lot of hardware and like physics and electric circuits and electronics experience. So I can basically do a lot of different things, but at like an entry level, which is kind of a problem for my degree because I am not going to be able to do something. I'm not going to be able to get hired into a position that's, maybe great for me right out of college. I'm probably going to have to do an entry level or like an internship for a while.
That's kind of the norm though. You know what I mean? It's very unlikely unless you're going in for something like highly specialized. But even if you're doing that, like a lawyer or an actuary or something like that, I know that doesn't apply to yours, but just like specialized, specialized educations, like even those jobs, you're going to be in at like an entry level, and there's potential for wage growth beyond that. It's just kind of like, that's just what happens,
But even those jobs are starting to pay like $15 an hour. And it's like, bro, I got a college degree. Yeah. A lot of the internships and entry level jobs I'm seeing.
Internships for sure. I don't know about
I've seen a lot of entry level jobs that are just like 15 an hour. I heard there's like 2 conversations I've heard just since the start of the semester where people are like, yeah, I'm starting at this job, but it's like paying me like dog shit, 10 an hour, 11 an hour.
It's
It's
really
like,
dumb.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I love seeing the school emails like, oh, check out these positions. And it's like only one of them ever said like, oh, you get paid 20 an hour. All of them are just like all of them are just
unlisted.
like, it's just like paid. I'm like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah, it can be $2 an hour. I mean, it can't legally, but same thing.
With internships, can't it? Can't, because you can have unpaid. Can't you have unpaid internships?
I've seen reverse paid internships that you pay to work.
That's when I want to say the R slur.
Yeah, that's when you start to back us in a corner. But
I mean, that kind of shit. It's going back to the minimum wage thing. It's all causation by the minimum wage and the social norm that we have with the idea of minimum wage, where it's like, if people are okay with making $7.15 an hour, why should we have to pay them so much more if it's just an internship or just an entry level job? It's kind of the situation where it hurts higher paying and higher education jobs down the line, because then people who are making because minimum wage jobs are still a lot of work. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people who do these kinds of because I've had a lot of minimum wage jobs too, and like working on code or whatever is much easy work. It's a little bit higher thinking, but it's a lot less manual labor. And I would much rather do something that doesn't require me to sell my soul every day and be super tired when I come home.
Yeah, but
we can't take for granted though the labor jobs though too, because those jobs, like even if you're going to like carpentry, it requires a lot of higher level thinking as well. And
I should specify that. Yeah, there is a lot of high level thinking.
Carpentry is not a minimum wage job.
No,
like you get.
I'm just saying like labor jobs themselves, not
trade jobs require a lot of both.
Yeah, let's.
And they're actually paid pretty well, like plumbing.
Oh yeah,
electrician,
for sure,
that kind of stuff.
You have to be. There is a lot of levels you have to go into, because still an entry level carpenter or plumber or electrician are still being paid kind of like dog shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course.
But in general, they're probably on par with internships that I'm getting with a college degree. Honestly,
maybe.
Yeah, because with trade jobs, you have to do like an apprenticeship, which is basically just like an internship for like a minimum amount of years.
I think a lot of those jobs are unionized though. Like they have there's a lot of carpentry unions and electrician and plumbers unions. And
there's benefits to those trades because of that very reason.
And that, because like I remember talking to Anthony, Big Anthony from high school. Anthony,
I know who he is. Yeah.
And he's doing like a construction thing. And I talked to him a while ago, and he was talking about getting like 25 an hour on his first job, and him having like full benefits and everything. Yeah. But I mean, it's not even luck. It took a lot of hard work, and it's like,
of course.
It's hard work. It's the hard work to set yourself up for opportunities like that.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to, the idea of like unskilled labor being minimum wage labor is kind of just bullshit, because someone who works in an office all day would hate their lives trying to work in like a fast food chain. Because the amount of management skills and the amount of multitasking skills are probably something that they don't even have. But we view that as unskilled labor because it's minimum wage, or it's something that's low paid, which is kind of a negative feedback loop for those kinds of jobs, because it's saying that they're paid like shit, so they probably are shit jobs. But like I said earlier, that's feeding into a lot of these jobs that require a college degree or like an associate's degree. So it's like, what is the point? Like, where are we getting to? We're basically just saying that it's okay to pay anybody nothing.
I mean, as long as everything is like provided, I don't think I would mind working for free, because it's just like,
what do you mean everything provided? Because that means like you're getting stuff out of it.
Exactly what it means. Like, say we work ourselves into a society where that, we can essentially we have to create a world that we can create matter.
But that's quite literally communism, right?
Yeah, pretty much is. And
you work for the idea of serving that amenity because everyone else also is serving another amenity.
I mean, yeah, but
I mean, I'm okay with that, but there's also a lot of like checks and balances with communism in general.
I said, that only works if we have created a society where we can essentially just create matter, where there are no limited resources to divvy up to, a certain amount of people.
Just start printing everything.
Yeah, just start printing money.
Yeah.
Well, that's all idea, our problems are solved.
That's kind of the central idea behind something like a UBI, a universal basic income, where it's a little bit more communal.
I thought that was like some medical thing. It's like, I got my UBI. God damn it. I'm on these meds now.
Urinary bullshit infection.
From listening to all this fucking right wing.
But I think something like that could be pretty good. It's not, necessarily hardcore communism, but it's something that is a little bit more, dependent on society. It's like
crackle, pop,
giving
water.
people, it's basically the alternative to making minimum wage and lower paid jobs able to support people, because we're obviously not going to do that anytime soon. Nobody cares about that. I mean, people care about it, but like
I think the problem
a
with
universal basic income should be the actual minimum wage, where it is
that's the whole point of it.
You
but
are
we're so far.
that is the bare essentials.
Yeah.
Right there. Not whatever a minimum wage job should be living comfortably, where a universal basic income would be these are the essentials.
Yeah. If you're going to privatize things like electricity, plumbing, water, things that are, essentially basic necessities nowadays, you're going to have to provide that in a very, I don't even know how to describe it. Like,
we need better infrastructure
you need
for everything.
It has to be like a very low entry level to be able to afford these kinds of things, like housing and shit. It's like, if we're going to have these things be like essential to life, why not make them essential? We're making them a luxury.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's just like a lot of lobbying that goes into, like, oh, we want, it would be better, more efficient for this company to be privatized rather than nationalized or whatever.
Only thing I'm lobbing is grenades in front of these fucking
In front of these fucking pipelines.
Destroy infrastructure. Nobody can have it. That probably shaped a lot of people's mindsets. You become a utility terrorist.
An eco-terrorist.
An eco-terrorist. Yeah. There we go.
There's literally,
yeah, no.
I think it was like the Atlantic or the New Yorker or something. One of those.
That's a joke, by the way.
No, it's not.
It was literally an article that said how to blow up a pipeline.
Yeah, dude. Attract the sharks to the global internet line. Like, okay.
You're commanding your fucking Aquaman.
Yeah, email Aquaman and ask him.
Aquaman, please, you got to do this one solid, man.
I mean, okay.
Just strap bombs to the dolphins, bro. It'll be good.
Suicide dolphins.
Don't give the military any
That's
ideas.
that's gonna be in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare
Dude,
3.
imagine
without a doubt, it's gonna be those fucking Boston Dynamics sniper dogs.
Yeah, the robot.
Yeah, I saw
machines.
a literal video on Twitter of just like this Boston Dynamics dog, and it's got this long tube on the top of its back. I'm like, what the? Is that a fucking sniper rifle on a robo dog?
That shit is so freaky. That's
dystopian.
the
War
future.
has changed, dude. Like,
Well, I mean, it's been different for a long time because of fucking like drones and nukes and shit.
Yeah,
but it's like these
It's
are
so
just,
easy to do so much damage.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think changing military warfare to like all being like unmanned, basically robots is one of the better options that we could have taken.
if it's robots against robots.
Yeah, it's like if we
It's
can
simulated fights.
Yeah, that's
You're
entirely
doing Ender's Game, right?
pretty
then.
much. Yeah.
Every
I mean,
war
wasn't
should
Ender's
be fought.
Game's real lives though on the line?
Oh, was it real? Were there people in those ships?
I think so. Oh, I thought that was the whole plot point. It was like,
07.
they just don't tell them where it's like, yeah, you're playing fucking video games, and it's like it's real people happening.
I just watched the movie, so
I think that's in the movies. Like literally,
I
the
just didn't pay
climax.
attention. Okay, after Rico from Hannah Montana got paralyzed in Ender's Game.
Didn't
Spoiler
some
alert,
dude
by
get,
the
like,
way.
fucking smash into a sink or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
okay.
Rico.
Oh shit!
Have you seen Hannah Montana?
I haven't seen Ender's Game.
Okay.
Have you
But
seen
yeah.
Hannah Montana?
I've totally seen Hannah Montana.
Yeah, the actor who plays Rico is in that, and he gets fucking
Dude,
paralyzed
Rico Nasty gets paralyzed from Hannah Montana.
on Ender's Game.
Rico Nasty.
Rico Nasty gets paralyzed in Hannah Montana. And is
Ender's Game.
And featured in Ender's Game.
It's a callback to Hannah Montana where he dies.
Yeah.
All war should be fought in League of Legends.
No.
That would probably make everyone way more nationalistic.
PTSD would be worse.
Yeah, we'd have way more mental health problems associated with the military.
We lost the war against Iran, and my brother came back talking about mid.
My brother ran it down mid, and that was the last time I ever saw him.
He hasn't been the same.
We'd probably have to boost VA assistance to that VA assistance. ATM machine. We'd have to boost VA at some point.
No, all veterans just get Challenger. They get honorary Challenger.
The objective morality point from this entire podcast was we should treat people like people.
In robot warfare.
Yeah, robot warfare. Just make everything robot.
It's just the same thing as like the previous podcast where I was talking about let's just make Big Battle Island the Thunderdome.
Island.
Yeah, where we just fight wars, but just like somewhere it doesn't fucking matter.
That's pretty close to happening because of billionaires owning all these fucking private islands. They're probably gonna
Let's start hunting people. They probably already do that.
Strap rockets on all the islands, merge them together, Pangea this bitch, and then we just
they pull the land masses together to form like the most dangerous game island.
super killer islands.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of people fighting robots, and there's like a prize pool of $2 billion.
Yeah, you have to actually go into that.
That's just Squid Game.
Ooh. Squid Game on Pangea with robots.
Don't give them ideas. They'll do that shit.
I'm waiting for Battlefield 2044 to come out.
You've already moved past 2042.
That was such a disappointing game.
I'm so sad.
Well, aren't they going free to play?
Oh, they are?
That's what I heard.
But Dying
Maybe
Light,
I'll play-
though.
or
maybe it was
I
a
don't give a
meme.
fuck about Battlefield. Dying Light, though?
I'm really excited for Dying Light.
What if that's a
So am
disappointment?
I.
I've seen a lot of gameplay for it, and usually I'm pretty skeptical. Like, I don't really go into a lot of like I watch gameplay in a lot of games that I am interested in coming out, and they usually you can tell when things are a little bit more jank from like the actual gameplay. And the thing is, gameplay came out in November about the game, and there's a lot of complaints about the game, specifically one being like the parkour was a little bit floaty. A lot of the things that were like set up to be certain parkour moments felt like they were pretty magnetized. And I've seen gameplay most recently, like this past week, that have came out.
Dude, that fucking grappling hook. Oh my God.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And the thing is, like, they've changed the way that the game works to make it more appealing to the audience. It's a lot more streamlined.
They
it's
actually
a lot less
listened to
magnetized.
them.
Yeah, crazy how that works. How
Yeah.
feedback actually makes a better product.
And you can see the things in the
kinda
game
wild.
that are like, it is not a broken game. If anything is wrong in the game, it looks like it's just going to be like a minor bug.
Yeah,
like you're trying to break the game.
The developers of Dying Light 2 have they've created a game where it looks so good that I don't give a fuck if the story is bad. I want to be within this open sandbox of just like throwing grappling hooks, slinging fucking dirty fingers at people. You know, it's just I'm very excited to just be part of that world that they've created.
Yeah.
Outside of the story that might be there, because Dying Light 1 story, it's fucking weird. It's so bullshit.
I like the story, but it was
you literally just drop in there. It's like, we want you to destroy the fucking vaccine containers. It's
Got
like,
it.
Why? It's like, okay, well, sure.
Yeah, they didn't really talk about the overarch. I feel like they could have done with a more overarching storyline, like why is Kyle Crane even there? Or like, what is he doing there? But I think the
midway through the story, all of a sudden has a conscience. It's like it doesn't make sense.
I think they should have made more character development in that case, so where it would make sense to do that. I think it was a good storyline that was kind of jank in terms of the actual. I don't know how to describe it. In terms of actual employment of that storyline, it kind of just didn't pan out.
They just didn't do enough expose.
Yeah, they probably just sunk a lot of time into their world, into their like mechanics and stuff.
And it's a cool world.
Move. It still works. You created a really good game.
Yeah.
But yeah, your story was a little bit lackluster, and if it establishes the narrative that Dying Light 2 should have good world and mechanics, and anything that is better than the first Dying Light in terms of story is an improvement, right? So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, because it's all set in the same universe, so there's definitely like
they get the
callbacks
same
and shit.
voice actor for Kyle Crane to be some new random dude.
It's a different guy.
It's a different guy. Yeah.
Why'd he do the exact same voice?
In one of the
I thought it was something
trailers,
different.
Literally
right?
one of the trailers.
I swear it sounds like the exact same.
No, it's the exact same fucking
it
dude.
the
I swear to God.
I know they sound similar.
If they didn't, they're like, when they're casting, it was like, I want you to be the first character.
Do your best Crane impression.
It's like,
Okay. So, no, it's a completely different dude.
Is it?
Is it?
Yeah.
How do they manage to make him sound the exact
same.
fucking same?
You can hear it in a lot of the voice lines. He does have a different timbre, like the way he talks and everything.
Who
But
gives a fuck? It's gonna sound almost the exact same.
yeah, because the voice actor,
Kyle Crane's older this time.
the voice actor for Kyle Crane is Roger Craig Smith, and then the voice actor for Aiden. What is his last name?
Brown.
Aiden Crane.
For Aiden. It's just voice actor for Aiden Dying Light 2 is Jonah Scott.
Aiden Dying Light.
Jonah Hill is
Jonah Scott.
Jonah Hill voices Aiden Scott, dude.
The thing is, I did have the same perception. I was like, they sound pretty similar,
Yeah.
but they are two completely different dudes.
So I'll be honest, I don't remember finishing the Dying Light story.
We literally beat it together.
I don't remember that.
Literally
I'm pretty sure Crane dies.
co-op.
Crane dies, right?
Here's the
know.
thing: he doesn't die in the main.
Spoiler.
It's fucking 5 years
billion
old.
dog years old, dude. But Kyle Crane doesn't die in the original. He dies in the DLC.
Oh, okay.
So the whole thing was that he got infected with the zombie virus at the ending of the first one, but he got cured. But then he gets infected
Zombrex?
again in the fucking DLC, and then he just turns into a mutant.
Okay, good for him.
Good for him.
And that's
Living
the
his
whole
best
that's the
life.
whole reason why the infection spread outside of Haran is because he took some like underground pipeline and like was infected outside the city. And so he's actually the reason the infection spread
Oh
everywhere
my
else.
god.
Dude. I mean, it ties in.
Crane,
It's
yeah.
kind of funny.
Also, something that's super interesting about the DLC of that game is that the mutants, the new zombie strain, is that they were like sentient and intelligent during the day, but during the night they turn into feral beings. So that might come up in Dying Light 2. That's
That's
I'm
pretty cool.
looking forward to
I
that
wonder
a little bit.
if Crane will make an appearance then.
Maybe
Because
maybe.
if he's like a mutant dude.
No, it's like a
It's
billion
20 years
later.
after.
Oh, really?
It's 20 years after
Oh,
the.
Well, he could still be alive.
No.
Maybe he's probably like a 40 or 50-year-old zombie.
Yeah.
You're telling me Super God Crane, the best free runner in the world, is gonna be, you know, like a boss or something?
You get into a chase.
There's no way.
No.
They wouldn't do that.
There's a chase sequence, and there's just one zombie that's hauling ass after you. You're like, who is this guy? And he's like, I'm Kyle Crane.
Fucking running
me,
at full
Kyle
sprint.
Crane.
Yeah.
The only statement that I really have for like what I've seen from Dying Light 2 is that it looks like they've fleshed out the combat more to be less. It's less of like a hack and slash. They got rid of guns in the game.
Yeah. I think
it's
it's a
what?
good move.
Yeah, I think it's honestly a good move.
Okay.
Because it's like the whole like
I mean,
there
there's
are
still
no
bows.
there's no
There's still long range weapons.
There's no like weapons manufacturers or anything. So I think the idea is that like all the guns by this time are pretty much gone.
Their idea behind the combat is more.
20 years, all guns being gone, though, with no one even like keeping maintenance. That's kind of.
Well, think about how hard society collapses after that. You know.
Dude, how hard society collapses and then how important it is to keep and maintain weapons then.
Well, it's like how many people know the profession of maintaining that shit. Imagine how many people died off knowing that knowledge.
The people who do know that are probably well respected and kept very close.
I mean, it's probably just like, you know, keeping lore in context. It's probably just like, it's so sparse in the universe that you're probably not going to find
Oh
it.
yeah,
So
like
there's
this
no reason.
place doesn't have a weapons guy where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, big city up north has weapons dude.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, the places that you go to are
Like
supposedly
fucking
like,
Metro 2033. That makes sense. Okay.
it's like the idea of
Everywhere.
they center the idea around like a modern medieval ages where like a lot of the weapons that they're using are way more makeshift. Less like just tying a blade to a gun
Road
or
sign
not
helmet.
a gun, a fucking bat.
You're holding a fucking pistol. Ha, yeah.
Have that.
So there's a lot more focus on things that aren't necessarily weapons. Like there's consumables, there's a
Sword.
lot more throwables, there's more traps laid in place. You're playing with your environment more. There's
That's
parrying and shit.
I'm excited for sword.
Sword?
Knife.
Yeah, the what pipe?
Yes, my favorite rebar.
Plank.
Yeah, board. Yeah,
Board
hammer,
on fire.
poison hammer.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
lot of that.
The
kind
game's
of
just
shit.
Dying Light. I mean,
It's basically just Dying Light when
It's
you
the
think
same
about it.
fucking studio. It's like saying a Battlefield 2042 is just Battlefield 2.
but like in the future.
Yeah.
Ugh.
but in 42.
It's I think I'm excited for it. There's
You
like
think?
I think, yeah. I put a lot
Are
of
you
thought
sure?
into it and deliberation, and I'm thinking that I'm kind of excited for it.
I'm kind of. I've been debilitated a lot over my thoughts.
The one complaint that I have about the game is it seems like a
bad.
lot of it's horrible. No, I'm kidding. It seems like it has the same like kind of lack of extreme polish that
Really?
Dying Light had, where there's
Really?
like well,
I
it's
think
like you
there's
can,
a lot of polish in a lot of areas.
Yeah,
of the
I think
game.
the sandbox aspect is really fun because of how unpolished it can be. Like you can basically take out an entire encampment of people by drop kicking them off high
You
ledges.
saw that fucking video?
Yeah. The video of the dude who's literally like raiding a bandit outpost and he's literally just jump kicking. Yeah, it's like that kind of stuff is really fun. I think it's the change of like realism and polish. Well, it's still kind of realistic because you can just push people off of high.
Yeah, I kind of fear
positions.
myself in that environment.
You're gonna fall off.
No, where that I will attempt to optimize the fun out of the game.
I mean, it's really fun to do that.
I mean, it is really fun to do that mechanic, but like I will go out of my way to essentially cheese the game. You know, I know myself well enough that I'm afraid of that happening.
They're gonna probably nerf the kick because I feel like it's very abusable.
Just
in
add
current
NPCs
state.
that can grab onto ledges, and then you'll be fine.
Or just make some resistant to falling. Oh, because they ragdoll off.
Yeah.
So it's something.
Yeah, they do.
Or like if you just like spam jump kick on a particular enemy too many times, they're like, okay, I understand what you're doing, and they can dodge it or something like that.
No, that's dumb.
There is dodging, so you may just get fucked and fall off the edge.
Yeah.
But that's just it's like a grander idea at play there because it's like mechanics that are really fun at play, but you lose a little bit of that polish and realism because it's like how do you take
like
it the more linear route?
Here's the thing that I think a lot of game companies don't understand, where that you can have the true realism versus a realistic, like you have realism versus a realistic experience. Where like you have something like Red Dead 2, which takes the realistic approach. What
is the difference between them?
So I was getting to that comparison,
like realistic,
but you have Red Dead 2, which takes the realism aspect, where it's you are literally just like a human ragdoll that's propelled by your fucking limbs and stuff, and everything that interacts with that ragdoll is, you know, like at play with the physics and stuff. And it's like, oh, horses can topple over, that ragdoll is like physics simulated, versus the like realism kind of thing, or it might be flipped. I don't fucking know, but I'm going under this
Just the guy.
Yeah. But the realism aspect, where it's like you have these realistic aspects of the game, but you don't want it to detract from the experience. So you purposely kind of look over a couple things where it's like, oh, you might ragdoll off an edge, but, you know, instead of like killing you on the fall from like a 10-foot drop because you hit your head, you just take a lot of damage. You know, it's that kind of thing where it's like you're willing to overlook a lot of the things that would fuck you up in real life for the sake of more enjoyment in the overall system, where it's like you're not really going to notice like these few things gone because it's convenient.
I think what I would, because I think Red Dead Redemption 2 falls in the way that I was thinking about it when you said realism versus realistic. I would say Red Dead Redemption 2 was a game that took into account a lot of realism, meaning like, you know, you can interact with everyone. There are random events that happen.
But there are parts of that game that like detract from the overall experience,
like
because
what?
you have to go through it. There's the downtime elements of like, you have these beautifully animated scenarios of Arthur Morgan opening up a drawer.
Oh, okay,
you know, it's just like, okay, he opens up a drawer, you have to loot this one, open up the cupboard. It's just, you have all these things that detract from the overall experience. And despite being beautifully done, it slows down your roll to like a fucking snail pace for the sake of this beautiful animation that you created. And it takes away from the overall experience, because although it is impressive, seeing it a billion times really like starts digging a sizable chunk of your time.
Yeah.
So you're not spending more time doing fun things. You're spending more time doing bunch of things that are like just fucking too realistic. I don't want to be here all the time. I don't want to see me skin a rabbit for the 8th time, you know, and just see it happen. I kind of want to just like done. Rather than seeing Arthur like, oh, I have to fucking cut this deer in half. Oh, I gotta peel off the skin. Oh, I gotta tie up this fucking corpse.
Like, because I've been replaying Red Dead Redemption 2, and I know
round breaks.
And the I don't know. I love the animations and everything that they do.
I'm not saying that it's a bad choice. I'm saying that
you lose something.
You lose. There's a trade-off with that.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I think what's it called? Yeah, there aren't because like when I was thinking of realism versus realistic, I would put like Red Dead Redemption 2 in the realism category, and then realistic, I'd put something like Arma 3 or Arma 2, where it's like a literal simulation.
It is a simulation. There's a lot of convenient aspects where like Arma, instead of I have to take off my clothes.
Yeah, you just drag it, click it off. Yeah. But at the same time, you like don't you like manually reload magazines and stuff?
Yeah, there's some stuff like that. But yeah, there is a point, like it's just those concessions that you're willing to take within a game that are kind of important.
And I don't know, like I don't think realism or I don't think something being realistic, like for Dying Light 2 or Dying Light in general, like as a franchise, I don't think it matters.
No,
because it's a fucking zombie game and you're doing parkour.
Yeah, and it's made to be a little bit more like a sandbox game in general. I think there's an important distinction between what type of game it is as well. Because if something like GTA had a lot of the the same kind of detail that like Red Dead Redemption does, it's like people would hate that game because the main point of it is to do whatever the fuck you want, fly a jet and like crash into some dude just driving his car or some shit like that.
Well, you hit the ejector seat and then die again.
I don't think that's necessarily true, because like you can still do anything you want in Red Dead 2. It's just like Alex said, like for like looting dudes or looting shit, there's sometimes more animations. And I think,
but like the things you can do in Red Dead Redemption are a little bit more realistic. Like riding a horse is not like driving a fucking bike jet and flying off into the sky.
Oh well, yeah. Like but first of all, like none of that shit was in the GTA story mode. You know? What I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Like that was all in multiplayer. But
I'm saying like in multiplayer, imagine if you were doing all these things.
Well, like in multiplayer Red Dead Redemption, you can ride a fucking bull or like a fucking zebra. You know what I mean? Like
the point I was trying to make with that Red Dead Redemption 2 argument was that I'm not trying to say that the realism is like, oh, you know, you're taking away from the experience with the looting and stuff. I'm saying that there comes a point when there are too many systems at play that you kind of clutter your own system.
What about Project Zomboid?
Project Zomboid is a game with the intent of having all those systems.
But that's my point. Because it's like those kinds of games have like a different aspect to them. Something like Red Dead Redemption
that's a different genre.
Is made to be so like a spectrum here is like Grand Theft Auto obviously is way more ridiculous and not super realistic, while Red Dead Redemption, probably not as realistic as Project Zomboid, is a little bit closer to Project Zomboid in terms of its realism. So it wants you to be able to, I mean, maintaining a gun in Project Zomboid is it's a huge hassle.
So fucking dumb.
You got to reload the clip manually. You have to make sure you have the correct bullets, the correct magazine. The gun can be jammed sometimes. Imagine if that happened in GTA, you'd be like, bro, fuck this shit. Yeah. But in Project Zomboid, it's fun because of that aspect.
I literally spent 6 hours organizing our fucking base.
We need to play again.
I'm so mad that we haven't played yet. I don't think Project Zomboid's like a good game to stream unless you have like a certain intent in mind. Because Project Zomboid is all about like setting up.
There's a lot of busy work.
Survival. Yeah. There is a lot of busy work where it's like, oh, I'm just sitting here reading a book for 3 hours. And in multiplayer, it's harder to get away with because you can't fast forward those times where like, oh, I'm reading a book. Where in single player, just like, and like 6 days pass by. I'm hungry and I'm dying.
Although I will say, fucking Moon, he streams Project Zomboid sometimes, and it's entertaining as fuck because he's entertaining. You know what I mean? And I think if you get like a good party of people together, you know, there's banter that happens, there's jokes, you know, there's fucking whatever, or you could use it to fucking react to content while you're just doing shit in Zomboid. You know what I mean? Like there are ways to stream it in a good way.
Yeah, there is, but like I feel like it's harder to appeal to like say an audience who isn't already familiar with Project Zomboid. Like you can watch Project Zomboid and you know what's going on. You understand the workflow that goes into the game.
Also, Moon has like, he plays a lot of obscure games. Like he played Kenshi and a lot of other shit.
I love Kenshi, but I fucking hate Kenshi.
Yeah, it's a tough fucking game. It's brutal.
It's such a dumb fucking game. You're traveling to another city. You get attacked by an animal. And all of a sudden, slavers come in and I'm fucking working my ass off in some camp. Like it's fucked up.
Dude, I watched this one video where it was literally an armless, legless start.
Solo?
Yeah.
Ambiguous Amphibious.
Solo?
Yeah, that's what he named his character, Tor Solo.
Oh my god.
And it's just so fucking ridiculous. Like he literally the majority of the fucking playthrough, he was like literally just crawling on his
crawling
face
on the ground.
like to another city, and then he got captured by slavers or something.
Oh my
No, he
god.
didn't.
Didn't?
He got captured, and then like some freak accident happened to the slavers. He was free, and he was able to waddle his way back to back to society.
Oh my god.
That game's
I
insane.
love that whole playthrough.
I've never seen that game. I have to look it up now.
It's such a dumb game.
It's pretty cool, but it's like it's it's a
A
top,
stat grinder game.
there's a lot of grinding and there's some base building. It's like a whole like RPG. You just like create your first, or you
Okay.
create your character and your backstory and everything, and then you just launch into this world.
It feels like an indie game.
It's
Okay.
an indie game.
Yeah.
What big studio would have made
I
that?
don't know. I'm just saying it feels like an indie game.
Because
okay.
it's a small game. It's not like you're gonna be. It's not like it's super beautiful or anything. It's actually it doesn't look very good. But
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't. It plays it plays really nice,
I mean,
but it looks
Project
like
Zomboid
shit.
doesn't look
yeah,
that good.
no. Well, honestly,
that
I think Project Zomboid, it has an art style. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It's not bad, but
No,
like it's
yeah.
not graphically.
Yeah, no, it's not like high
Fidelis.
fidelity. Yeah, but like games don't need to be high fidelity to like look good. You know what I mean? Like I think Project Zomboid is a low poly game, but I still think it looks good because it uses its art style.
I think it makes sense.
Like Minecraft. Like Minecraft doesn't look good in the conventional sense.
Well-
but it can have very pretty moments just by the art style that it has.
But I think that comes down to something a little bit deeper versus like the art style in general. Because I think something like Project Zomboid, while I think it fits, I don't think it's
It's
super
pretty.
artistic
Yeah.
or pretty.
Yeah.
Something like Minecraft is still very simplistic, but there's a certain art to it that makes it look special in its own way, which
Yeah.
is I think I think it's a part of Minecraft's insane popularity.
Yeah. And it also probably depends on the type of game that you're wanting to make, because in all honesty, things aren't supposed to be pretty in Project Zomboid.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
what
there's-
aspect are you trying
Yeah.
to focus on?
Which is
in
why I
your
said it.
development?
I think it
Yeah.
works still.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, Kenshi just has like, it's very kind of like low poly, like assets from like 2007. Like that's kind of what it feels like, but it's still good. It's still fun. game.
It's made like really early Unreal Engine. kind
Is
of
it
thing.
really Unreal?
No, that's what.
Oh,
it feels
that's
like.
what it, yeah, that's true. But yeah,
That was the
Not a bad game.
podcast. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining us.
GG guys.
That was us.
That was me.
That was I.
Me.
We.
Shut up.
All right. See you guys
I'm
later.
heading out west.